Hello everyone, welcome to this video on creating a dragon head. In this video I'm just going to talk over something I've made and pretty much just explain how I've done it. I mean, there's nothing too technical, but the process of the way that I've done it anyway, the process of creating a dragon head, in this case from a side profile view, using reference from other creatures, other animals. That's the main thing to take away from this. You know, not a lot of people just sort of come up with ideas off the top of the head without any reference. Maybe if they're really good or that they've been doing it for a while, but in general, most people use reference from animals, which is what I'm doing here. Now you can see here, starting with the crocodile, I am actually drawing the animal out, which I will do with all the animals I'll do. If you're not interested in seeing this beginning bit and you just want to see the dragon being made itself, skip ahead to 5 minutes in, it should start. But most people will just get photos, photo reference, or any sort of reference of animals that they can, even if it's taking them themselves. But I've actually decided to draw them out. The reason for doing this, partly because I'm making a video on this for you guys to watch, so I want it to be a little bit more interesting than just me showing you a photo that someone else has already taken. And obviously some of these animals I could not go out and photograph myself, so I decided to draw them. But an added benefit to this is I believe that you notice more details, things you wouldn't normally pick up. You might pick up on some things when you look at a photo, but when you actually draw it out and spend a bit of time drawing each animal, you pick up on even more details. An example of that would be, at one point I think I draw a rhino, and I pick up a few things in terms of like skin texture and whatnot, but once I actually spent a little bit more time on it, putting a little bit more detail in, I started noticing cracks and things like that in the horns, and just small bits like that, but they really do make a difference. So again, although it's not necessary for you to actually draw them out, if you do have time, it is a big help. I will say that I did spend too much time drawing these animals out, especially this iguana here, due to the amount of scales on it. I wasn't planning on doing it. The bigger scales were not too bad, but I did end up just drawing every smaller scale out, and my hand and my wrist were killing afterwards. So if you are just using it for a quick reference, just to get an idea of some bits, I wouldn't actually recommend doing what I did there. I think later on, when it comes to drawing the actual dragon, with some of the smaller scales, I actually decided it would be quicker and easier to sort of make a custom brush just for small scales, and it worked out alright. I wouldn't say it looked quite as good as drawing them myself, but as I say, my hand was killing after doing this, so it was probably the best way. So I think I've used about 7 animals. I think it was 7, and I've tried to take a little bit, an element from each individual one, just to make it more of a unique dragon. That being said, I do use a cheetah at one point. I draw a cheetah. I was planning on using it for reference, just to make it a little bit more unique than normal, a little bit different. If nothing else, I was going to use the pattern coming down from its eye, like the dark bit of fur coming down from its eye, coming around its mouth. But I didn't end up doing that because it looked ridiculous. So although you see me draw a cheetah, I don't end up using that. And like this antelope, for example, I decided after drawing the iguana, I realised I was spending too much time, so I did quick, faster drawings, and mainly because I only needed that for the horns anyway, so I was sort of wasting time drawing the whole face. Elements that I've actually used, I think I started off with a crocodile. From that I've taken the teeth, the sort of overlap from the bottom jaw and the front jaw. The teeth sort of alternate between some overhang over the bottom jaw, and then the odd fang, the odd tooth overhangs onto the top jaw, which I thought looked pretty cool, and it worked out pretty well. I used a T-Rex sort of for the main structure. A lot of dragons are based around sort of dinosaurs, I would say. They're really good to use as sort of reference images. They are used frequently for things like that. So I tried to use some animals that are commonly used. Reptiles, things with scales, types of birds like eagles are used a lot because some people design the dragons with a little sort of beak on them, which I did try to do. But then I've tried to use some animals a little bit more unique or less common in designing a dragon. As I say, I even went as far as to draw a cheetah, but I didn't end up using that. with the rhino and the antelope, I actually drew them because I wanted, you know, coming up with some sort of horn ideas and spikes, although the iguana had some really good spikes. I mean, you can see here now, this is me actually just using the animals that I've drawn as reference and starting to lay down a base. I do only sketch this, I'm not painting it, and I do have to play around a bit. I did play around a bit off camera just to see what worked and what didn't. I wasn't sure if at this point it was actually looking a little bit too far-fetched, a little bit silly, so I was tempted to change it, but I'm glad I didn't because I was really happy with the way it came out. And you know, this is the first time I've tried to design a dragon, or first time successfully, should I say. Again, I mentioned I used the teeth from the crocodile. I think the main sort of structure from the T-Rex, you know, with like the big brow line, the indents, the jaw, things like that, which worked well. We've got the iguana, which I used for some of its scales and the spikes on the back. The eagle, used the beak, and I think I actually went with the eagle eye, which I could have gone with any eye, and I think any would have worked for this. And you know, really, if this was a proper concept, I would probably you know, throw out a few ideas and maybe, you know, do them quicker than this, because I think in total I spent close to 10 hours doing this, but half of that was drawing the animals. But even so, 5 hours for this sort of level of detail sketch for some people is longer than they need. For me, I'm quite slow at drawing, so for me that was actually quite fast. What other animals have I used? I've used the rhino. I've just taken the horns, which I thought worked really well, especially with the scales I've used on top, sort of spikier scales than the rest, and I've put them sort of coming up the horn as if the horn's like a bone bursting out, and I thought that looked pretty cool. So some things I didn't actually have reference for, and you know, you've got to make some things up as you go along, but just play around, see what works. I think I've actually used the scales around the mouth are actually more sort of from the crocodile, and as I say, the ones on top, the top of his head are spikier, which at first wasn't intentional, but then, you know, when I picked up on it, I was making a point of doing it, and I thought that looked really good. The scales on the indent parts of his face, using the custom brush, and this bit under his neck, the iguana neck. Again, I wasn't sure if it looked a bit silly, especially one bit, the depth wasn't right on it, so I do have to play around with that and adjust that, which was a pain, but I got it there in the end. And the horns I used from the antelope. I actually, at the end, you'll see, you can see both horns, because one thing I don't like about doing a side profile is you would, if the horns were in line and there's two horns on the head, you would actually only see one of them from the side profile, unless they're not quite perfect or unless it's slightly angled to a 3/4 view. However, I don't like this. I don't like sort of showing it like that, because from a perfect side view, only seeing one horn, that horn could be one horn in the center of his head. So I tried to, you know, show that a little bit at the end, so hopefully you'll see what I mean when that comes up. So I was really happy with the way it came out, and I'm glad I managed to record it all, because I did think I lost footage at one point, so that's good. I think the main thing to take away from this is to use reference. You hear it all over the place, you know, people tell you to use reference, but for me at least, I was still quite I was trying to avoid it, but I realised you know, if you've not got reference, how are you going to know what to draw anyway? So gather reference. If you've got time, draw them out like I did first. You'll learn a bit from that, and then put that all together. If you're using Photoshop, if you're working digitally, you could even literally select elements and place them together, you know, like a jigsaw. Just stick it all together, see what you can come up with, and then maybe draw over the top of that or draw it separate and see what you can come up with. You'll be able to come up with some really cool designs. I mean, this was the first thing that I tried, the first design I tried, and I was really happy with it. So I like to think if I spent even more time, I could have come up with some more designs, but who knows. And there is the horn being doubled over, the magic of working digitally. So I really hope you guys like this, because this one took me a while, and I hope that, you know, you picked up some tips from this video, and I'd love to see what you guys come up with. So, you know, post them on my Facebook or any way you can get in touch with me. So there it is, finished. If you do like the video, please do show your support and subscribe to my channel and like my Facebook page, and maybe watch me on DeviantArt if you use that too. Thanks so much, guys.